Hi everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, you are Simon, and in today's video we're going to be looking at the full moon in Libra, and this is for the 28th of March 2021. So I hope you're well, and that the last week and a half hasn't been that bumpy, although my point of view of this full moon is that it is going to be a bit bumpy, and hopefully today I can share some of my own personal thoughts about how to navigate our way with this full moon that's coming up, and in particular what we're going to experience with the Sun conjunct Chiron, Venus conjunct Chiron aspect. That will also be a huge part of this actual full moon as well. So looking forward to kind of jumping in and sharing with you a lot of all the information that I have. Okay, now the place that I wanted to start just before I jump into the chart is I wanted to just give a little bit of backstory about my perception of Chiron in Aries, and why I think it's really important to understand its role in the healing process that we individually are able to tap into as we move along this Earth timeline. And to not simplify Chiron's message, but to try and make it as direct as possible and practical as possible, for a large part of our lives, so let's just say the last 100 years, okay, we have been living in a culture where our sense of boundaries and our ability to know what is correct for us and right for us, and how we can actually express those boundaries without causing guilt or any forms of, I don't know, like just where we've sacrificed ourselves, right? So self-sacrifice, where we don't believe that we deserve something. We have experienced trauma where our sense of identity has been completely repressed in response to a survival mechanism that we need growing up, as an example. So there's quite a lot of examples on the spectrum of Chiron's transit through Aries that this full moon is really going to bring to the surface. And the short version is we're all having the potential to really rediscover what's alive and real for us as we are individually. Okay, so just to kind of expand this a little bit further, we've lived in the Pisces age for last 2,000 years, and that collective energy looks like self-sacrifice. It looks like putting everybody second. It's a shared ideal. Whereas as we progress more with Saturn in Aquarius, and of course Saturn square to Uranus, there's a lot of energy that's pushing for the liberation from a shared ideal and into who am I as an individual, right? Aquarius energy. So to me, this full moon represents the cycle of becoming not only aware of a wound that we have carried with us for our lives, right? So each of us has an individual wound that we carry, and that wound that we carry, is of course really intense to deal with, and many of us have maybe tried to heal those parts of ourselves. We've tried to talk about them, we're trying to process them, trying to understand them, and so we carry this wound with us, right? Individually we have a storyline that we have, and this energy that this full moon represents is the potential to actually shift the perspective on how we not only interface with this wound, but also breaking free from it and being able to actually pioneer something new in your life. In other words, to break out of the molds of conditioning, social conditioning, and to step into something that's really real and organic for yourself, which of course can be very scary and very daunting, because there are steps that we might need to take in our journey that require us to be courageous, or require us to put a boundary in place and say no where we've always said yes, as an example. So this combination of Venus, Chiron, and the Sun, to me, represents the potential to heal these patterns of repression that we have in ourselves, and to liberate ourselves from that, and to step into something that's more authentic and real and alive for you, and then to be able to actually then live from that space, right? So that's a big part of it. And then, of course, a lot of this energy also speaks to the idea of community, and how we all, in some way, shape, or form, do require ourselves to not necessarily always be in constant connection with community, but how community really is important for us to be able to hear our voice. Mercury conjunct Neptune, right, in Pisces at the moment. Hear our voice in a bigger way, right? So how do you know who you are if you're, let me put it to you this way, right? How do you know which community or identity to align with that resonates with you if you don't know who you are? So again, this full moon really brings to the surface, themes around feeling included or excluded. Where do I belong and where do I don't? Or who do I resonate with, who do I not? And so the questions that we want to ask ourselves, well, what do I value? So yeah, we have Uranus and Taurus as an example, and making a connection to the moon in Libra. Again, I'll show you all of this in the chart. So what are my values? How am I instinctually discovering myself in a new way? How am I increasing and developing and strengthening my self-confidence and self-worth, self-esteem? How am I able to put boundaries in place and be able to define my life according to the way that I feel correct and is my truth, right? That being a part of it. And then, of course, how we are switching the narrative from sadness and pain and experiences that we've had in our pasts that have not been friendly, right, for whatever reason. And so kind of almost stepping outside of the narrative that's always, that we've always felt suppressed by on ourselves, and to be able to then see it and take that pain and maybe in some way, shape or form, if you feel called to, share it in a way that helps and supports other people in a community environment, right? Okay, so we're going to jump into the charts and I'll share with you what I see and then... Okay, so full moon in Libra chart, and this is, as you can see, 28th of March, 2021. And today I've decided to go with the green coloring. Woohoo! So whatever that means. Okay, so here are the aspects that I think are important to note. Of course, we've got this little big sector over here, and then we have the Saturn over there. We're switching to a different color, and it's trine to all the North Node energy here. It's there. Let's close that circle. Then we'll take purple and we'll talk about this Mercury Neptune conjunction that's there. And then, of course, we'll use blue for this aspect between the moon that's sitting there and the inconjunct that is happening to Uranus. Okay, because Uranus is all individual and Aquarius, we'll give it an arrow instead of a box because it doesn't like to be in a box, right? Okay, so enough of the creative drawing. You can see my moon's in the 5th house. So I like to, creatively express in this way. Okay, so let's talk about this Sun Chiron Venus conjunction. And again, the label that I want to use with this conjunction over here in Aries is 2 things. One, we are recognizing the sadness and the pain that we carry where we may have not felt seen, recognized, or validated, and or where our personal boundaries or personal space have not been fully developed, and also where we may limit ourselves in our capacity to fully shine in what's really real and correct for us due to all the situations that we've occurred and been in. Okay, so Chiron, the wound that we carry with us. And this is individual, so I can't kind of label all of them, but to a certain degree, I've managed to at least label many that I'm sure that most of you can identify with. Okay, so here's this Chiron, and the important thing to note with this full moon is that there's going to be a lot of sadness and a lot of pain that's going to come to the surface, no doubt, right? It's going to be very emotional, okay? And you're going to see this spill out into the collective as well, right? You're going to see this material, this highly charged energy come to the surface, okay? So pain, sadness, and where we individually are carrying that story with inside of ourselves. Then it speaks to the liberation or the potential to liberate and to step into something new, to step into a new action, to step into a new behavior, to birth yourself out of the limiting mold of the past and to step out into something new. Okay, being courageous, being birthing into something new. All right, so that's what that represents. Then we have this square that's taking place between Saturn and Uranus over there, and Saturn's trine to North Node and Gemini, okay, or should I say Mars. Now, the backstory, right, the undercurrent of this chart is held with the Saturn-Uranus square. So that's the big deal, right? For the rest of the year, we've got the Saturn-Uranus square. And very, very simply, this Saturn-Uranus square is the dynamic tension between the outdated or fading away patterns of reality, so outmoded behaviorisms and truths and perspectives that no longer resonate with you, right? So this would be the how the square is showing up on one level, and also showing up as the tension between trying to take our shifting ideals and values and putting them into something that has coherence. In other words, restructuring reality from this new perspective, from this new space. So Saturn Uranus is almost like the building blocks of a new foundation. And what are you putting in that foundation? Well, you're growing a liberated self, all right, a free self. Okay. And this full moon highlights this, right? What is it that you're trying to free from? That's why this energy has the potential to incredibly empower people, but it also can be very volatile and emotional. Okay. So there's the Saturn square. Now the trine is supporting two things. It's saying here we have the opportunity to really rewrite the script, so redefine the script. Mars in Gemini, right? Redefining the script. Remember, I talked about this in the new moon in Virgo, if I'm not mistaken. I talked about the magic of new experiences, right? To not project onto the reality the ideological beliefs, but actually to see it from your own point of view. So now, as we step into this trine, we're doing is we're expressing and we're labeling new felt sensations, thoughts, and ideas that contribute to the overall foundation building that is associated with the freedom of self. So you're freeing yourself from constriction, that is part of the past, is no longer representing your future. You're freeing from that. And then as you're freeing from that, you're also noticing, validating, and expressing new sensations, experiences, ideas, perspectives. And you're kind of really allowing yourself to communicate, right? You're sharing, you're communicating. And then remember in the beginning of the video, I said that we're also looking at aligning with groups of people who resonate with us, right? Who we find common ground in, that we can align with and say, this is our perception, this is our truth. And so you're finding your voice amongst others as well, right? So you're noticing that human beings cannot be isolated. And you can see that in the world right now, that we've been, a lot of people have been living in isolation. You've been living in isolation. So the need for communication and social structure and having to find new ways of connecting and communicating, because we can't live completely isolated, right? We do need communication or interaction to a certain degree. So this is about the capacities for us to also find a tribe, and not so much actively looking for it, but more along the lines of really just kind of working on validating your own inner self, and then being able to notice yourself. And then by noticing yourself and understanding what your values are, then becoming more and more aligned or associated with group dynamics that represent and reflect the same as you. Okay. So communication, feeling included, right? So that's the Saturn trine. Now, if you look at the relationship between Neptune and Mercury, this is also interesting, because again, Neptune does not like, or should I say, Mercury does not like to hang around with Neptune or in water. Mercury doesn't like those elements. So there's this nebulousness at the moment with Mercury. So we can have a lot of clarity about certain things, but we can also have no clarity. So I would also advocate that this Saturn, sorry, not the Saturn, but this Mercury-Neptune conjunction is about being able to notice sensory perception that's occurring within yourself. Sensory perception is a Neptunian feature. And to be able to really tune in with what's really alive and real and where's the spirit in you. And that's, again, what you want to communicate from. This Mercury-Neptune is about really communicating, aligning with what's the spirit with you, as opposed to feeling and expressing something that feels dead, that doesn't feel alive, that doesn't awaken you, Yeah. Then you also see it from the point of view of the potential to really heal and have a lot of self-compassion, have a lot of self-empathy for what you have gone through and what you have been feeling, right? In terms of the wound, remember we're going back to this Chiron Sun Venus conjunction, right? So this Mercury Neptune is the capacity to really allow yourself to wash away the sadness and the pain so that it's not completely overwhelming, but you actually feel it with the tenderness that it's need to address these wounds, right? And then to be able to then shift the perspective, because the Mercury is the North Node ruler, right? And so the North Node gets influenced by Mercury. So at the moment, we have Mars on the North Node saying, go this way. And then you have Mercury conjunct Neptune saying, communicate and express in this way through a sensory perception, through redefining the narrative, through fading away the old story and the old script of, oh, I'm a failure, or oh, I can't do this, or I've never done that, and woe to me as an example, but really actually kind of coming from a space and seeing, okay, this is what's affected me, this is what has occurred to me, and I'm going to take new steps to change that narrative in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Okay. And then we have this connection between the moon and Uranus. Okay. Now, again, when you're talking about an outer planet and you're talking about a personal planet, so moon being personal, outer planet being Uranus, or personal planet being Mercury, outer planet being Neptune, we're going to have this dynamic tension between the collective memory, outer planets, and our personal relationship to that collective memory. In other words, that the collective will be experiencing and also feeling. So all of us having the potential to really dive deep into healing these wounds through forgiveness, self-acceptance, and understanding, finding the meaning in it and moving forward, of course. But also with the moon Uranus, if you notice this relationship between the two here, there it is. And let's go right down from the moon all the way down to Uranus. We'll see the quincunx aspect that's there on the chart. You see it? Okay, so there's the quincunx aspect, okay, between the moon and Uranus. So that aspect is speaking to the crisis that occurs between the inner reality that we have and how we then portray that reality outwardly. So inwardly, I could say I am somebody that loves pancakes, right? Outwardly, what I would say, or I would do is, if somebody says, "Oh, I love pancakes," I'd turn around and go, "Yeah, me too." There's a mirroring that takes place, right? There's a resonance, there's a synchronicity. And what's the context of this? Well, Libra is where we learn to find people that we are embraced by. And we also learn to find people that we are not wanting to be embraced by. So Libra is not about everybody's included. It's about there are certain things in life that will include you, and there will be certain things in life that you shouldn't be included by, right? Libra teaches us the lessons that not everything is for everything. Okay, there are certain things in natural phenomena of reality, right? In nature, you can see that if you put the two together, they would not work together. So Libra teaches us that what is resonant and what is not. So the second house, or Taurus, as an example, this is where Uranus is at the moment, speaks to the inner relationship that we have to ourselves. And Libra is how that relationship looks on the outside. And we do this by saying, yes, I like astrology. Or me too. Let's have a conversation. Or I like astrology. Or I don't. Okay, could we have a conversation about it? Not interested, right? There's a split. There's no embracing there. That's that experience that I just shared with you right now, how that works. That's the inconjunct between Libra and Taurus. Okay, so it's how social dynamics actually take place. And the reason why it's a blind spot or inconjunct is because one is how we see ourselves inwardly, and the other one is how the person is seeing themselves inwardly and how they're projecting their sense of self on you and how you're doing that to the person. Okay, I hope that's not too complicated to understand. When we communicate with each other, are we communicating relative to what we want to hear, or are we actually deeply listening? Right, so that's the first thing. That's what that quincunx tells us. It's like it teaches us that when we are in relation, we're always in relation to ourselves and then in relation to the other person. So bringing this all in over here, the moon quincunx Uranus speaks to the awareness around, who are we actually being, who do we feel included by and who do we not? And how is our own narrative, in other words, Chiron and Aries over here, the wound with Venus, how is our own narrative influencing our perception of the other? In other words, do we see the other person or do we see what we want to see, right? And so this is a lot to do with this energy. I mean, there's so many layers to it, and I feel like I'd be talking forever. But in kind of like just put a bullet point experience, this aspect speaks to the ability to sense or ask yourself, am I listening to the person or am I listening to what I think I want to hear, and then filtering it through the other person through that? That's the first thing, right? And then the second one is, am I tuning into my values, and am I recognizing if this is a shared experience that I want to participate with another person or not, as an example, So how does this now tie into the whole chart? Well, like I said right in the beginning, that we are individuating from shared ideals, right? And that's actually what the upcoming course is about that me and Jen are launching in April. In fact, we're actually going to be releasing a six-part video series that's going to help you guys, just understand this collective shift that we're going through. And, it's deeply rooted in this shared ideal. So how am I individuating myself from everybody else's opinions, thoughts, and ideas, and being able to stand in my own opinion, thoughts, and idea? Who am I as a separate person as opposed to a shared ideal, right? It's like, understanding who you are and what your values are, right? And then how we are also recovering / healing this, well, not so much healing, because you can't heal the wound in Chiron, but you can definitely understand it. That then offers the ability to share the medicine for other people. But how are we becoming connected to that message that we have in us, that wound that we have in us, right? So we have the wound in us, and we hear it, and we pay attention, and we're listening compassionately, right? We're really, really sitting with the effects of our life and the things that we have not been able to feel like we can break out of. That's the thing I want to put across there. Once we do this, we start to then we then start to identify with people and associations that are deeply resonant with the fiber of our truth, as opposed to ideas about who we think we should be friends with and not, as an example. And so we start to then, Saturn square Uranus, see that we're building the foundation for an entirely new structure of reality for ourselves individually. Yeah. So this grand trine that sits between Saturn at 11 degrees Aquarius, Mars North Node, and the Moon, not only are, as I said, they're in air, but they also speak to our ability to orientate ourselves with our voice, and where that voice is actually deeply understood and heard, and who is not listening to us. So there I come back to the listening part again, right? Who are we listening to? Can we listen deeply? Can we listen deeply to ourselves? And are we able to then, in our individuation process, be able to listen to people who have something to share for us? And how are we aligning with people who have a similar voice to us? So all of this is kind of working towards a specific direction. And it's not working in the way like this in a like, oh, look, by the way, all these planets are moving in this direction. No, this is the potential of this full moon. And it's just the combination of all of these symbols that really speaks to our individuation process at this stage, right? Okay, so I hope that makes sense for you. Awesome. So in the description below, what I'll leave you with is a few website links that I think could be really helpful as we navigate through this Chiron-Venus conjunction. You'll see there's a link to Pete Walker's website, where you will see it will say Human Bill of Rights. And I really encourage you to, check out that website, particularly the Human Bill of Rights that I'll link you, and just kind of read through them and identify what Bill of Rights do you feel are essential for the recovery of your own individuality and the recovery of your own boundary making process, and also healing and splitting away from internalized messages that you may carry about yourself. So that's that there as well. And of course, the feelings inventory from the Nonviolent Communication website, and you'll see there as well. And the way that you can do that is you can just kind of, when you notice that a lot of emotions and intensity come up with this full moon, just to take out that PDF and just kind of label the feelings that you have, and you'll find that it actually grounds you a lot. And that's something that I've really found a lot of value in when it comes to working with Chiron work, because it's very somatic. We want to kind of become less cerebral in our process and be more present with what we feel. That's another way to actually see and embody this energy at the moment. So if there are experiences that you do go through that are going to be triggering, in the description there are links to be able to, or to some resources that I think could be helpful. Okay. All right, everybody, thanks very much for listening to this video. I really hope that you found a lot of value in it. And until the next one, have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.